Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is going to be the next part of our travel app series, and in this video we are going to implement Stripe payments. So I won't waste any time and straight away jump to the code. Okay, so for Stripe, first thing is that you need to get over here. If you don't have any, existing projects, I have this two projects or two accounts that are running. One is the demo and the one is the business. If you don't have, what you have to do is that you can just go over here, create an account, and you basically define the name of the account, whatever the account is, and then just create it. Once you create it, it will not ask for much questions, just and then once you create, you will get something like this. Now these are the important thing. I'm gonna switch to demo because that is the one that I'm using for this project. Now um, there are two different keys that you need. Specifically, there are three, but if you have two keys at least, that can help to some extent. One is this publishable key. One is the secret key. So basically, what you have to do is that you can just copy each key once at a time and go over here into this application.yaml file and place these over here with the secret key and publishable key. So basically you need to update these keys in your server, and just run the server once you update those keys. And yeah, that's basically important. We'll also have the webhook secret implementation, but for now I'm not doing that. We'll do it later. Okay. Now, so these are very important keys. You never share these keys with anyone, and yeah, that's something like you need to care of. Okay. Now, okay, so the first thing is that I'll basically create a new branch, and the next step would be to basically implement a specific API that will be related to booking. So for that, I'll get over here into the Traveler Marketplace, and now inside this booking section, you can see I have basically updated some sort of information regarding this. But yeah, this is important. Like over here, you go to the bookings. This is a post API, and it requires some sort of information that you need to pass. It's similar to the check availability of that variable that we have. So basically, we'll be using the same request object here. And now, once we pass this information, it returns some sort of information that contains, the some of the details related to the trip. And there are certain things that are important. For example, the currency, the status for the booking, and the payment status. So basically the payment status and payment ID would be important for us, that we will basically using. So we haven't like implemented this flow, the booking flow. So I'll basically first implement this, and once that is implemented, we'll basically jump to the next stuff. Okay. So so like I said, what we need to do is that we need to implement that booking flow. So for that, first thing first, I'm gonna go remote data source. This is my check availability section. Right now, I'm kind of going to use something similar here. So we'll just recreate that and say as um, create booking. Okay, this request object is going to be similar. Like I said, perhaps we can change that to something so that we can basically understand it. You can make that as booking uh, info request. Okay, so basically this is the booking info that we'll be using. In return, we are not going to get the booking availability. Instead, what we need to do is that we need to create that object. Okay, so basically how do we create that? We just get over here and just copy this JSON object, and then inside this Android section, first thing first I'll go to the data section, and in the data section I'll be going to the models. Now over here you can just create a new Kotlin data class and paste that information, and this is going to be booking DTO. Okay, now once we generate that, you will see that it will generate this booking DTO. Let's make sure to make it serializable as well so that we can use it. And also we need something similar in the domain section as well. So I'm gonna go over here, go to the model section, create this Kotlin class, and let's call that created through this, and I'm going to use same thing, and that is going to be booking model, or you can just call it booking. Okay, so now we have the bookings there. Now what we need is basically we need to create a mapper. So just create a Kotlin class, or perhaps you can just copy this existing one and call that booking mapper. Okay, now it requires booking DTO here, and in return it will be returning the booking. Okay, and that is just similar to what we do here. Booking DTO. Now this is something that we need to implement, something like this. There is no user ID, so we can get rid of that. Then we have check-in dates, checkout dates, payment status, receipt, trip status, customer ID. Okay, so these are the information that it will require, and now we are basically good with that part. And what else? I think that's that. Now this implementation is done, and data source section is also there. It's basically just getting this information and returning the result. Based on that, we just need to make sure to use booking for here like this, and the rest is fine. It's a post request, so we're good on that. Authorization, we need to pass the token as well, which is good, and then the rest stuff is done. Okay, now next up is to basically implement the relevant flow for that. So for that, first thing is that we need to implement the repository. So if we go to the domain section into the repository, and that is going to be the booking repository. Firstly, right now we just have this one. The next step would be to create a suspend function, create booking. Okay, and it is going to be similar, like we need listing ID, we need trip ID, and we need number of guests. These are the information that we need, and in return what we need is that we need a result for a booking. Okay, so once you do that, you can get over here and just create that next functionality that you want, and this is going to be pretty similar to first thing is basically we'll get the result from the remote data source. I'm going to say wall result is equals to remote data source dot create booking, and now over here we need the booking info request, so we'll be just creating that booking info request. It requires these information, you just pass those. Okay, now once that result is available, the next step would be basically to check if the result is fine. If the result is there, what you do is that you do this. Instead of doing this, what I'm gonna do is then I'm gonna say booking mapper dot to domain, and I'm gonna pass response dot, yeah, I think that's fine. What's the problem with the response? It's a booking availability DTO. No, it should not be booking availability DTO. It should be booking DTO. Okay. Now, once you do that, I think then it should be fine. So now what happens is that it just gets the data. If it's successful, it gets the response. Else, it basically returns the information. Okay. So now this is done. The create booking implementation from this part is also done. Now the next step would be to basically create a use case for that. So for that, I'm gonna use create booking use case. And now this booking use case is going to be something like this. It's pretty much similar to what you have. Like you will be passing these information instead of availability. Like I said, you will be getting booking for that. And then it should be create booking. The rest is just pretty much similar to what we implemented in the previous video. Now the use case is also available, but this use case needs to be defined in the DI. So we'll go over here to the domain model and create a factory for create booking use case. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. So you import that. Now we are done. Okay, now this implementation is done. The create booking use case is there. What's left? Yeah, now we just need to update our view model so that we can use it, right? Okay, so for that, I'm gonna use checkout screen, checkout UI state, and now over here you can see is that we need some more information. For example, you can say wall uh, creating booking, and that is going to be boolean is equals to false. It's going to be boolean, not booking. Okay, so creating booking, and then you can say wall booking, that is going to be null. So now these are the two things that we need in order for the creating booking. This will basically be just similar to like we do for availability. We add some sort of loader, and then this create booking. Once we have the booking available, we'll basically make sure that okay, now we can go ahead with the further stuff. Okay, so now once that booking is available, this UI is available. The next step would be to go to the checkout, view model screen, and like we have these information for check availability, we'll be creating one more function that says create booking, and that is going to be pretty similar to what we have. But first thing is that we need to implement our use case that we create, wall create booking use case. That's one thing. And now inside that, what you need to do is that you need to pretty much implement how you want the rest of the stuff. So you can say just like I collected all this information over here, so like make sure everything is as per the requirement, and then next step would be to go for view model scope dot launch. Then this UI state dot value, first we update that to basically loading, so the create booking goes to true, availability error message remains null, and booking remains null since it's loading, right? Then we have booking execute, which is listing ID, and then trip ID. That like basically this is the information that we pass. And lastly, if the result is null, we show as error. If not, we show basically update that value with the booking as well, which means that now we have the bookings as well. Okay. Now once the booking is available, we'll do the rest of the stuff like initiate the payment and all, but at least the UI state is now handled accordingly. And the next step would be to go to the checkout screen now. So over here in the bottom, you have this proceed to payment section. This basically does that stuff for us. So over here, you can say proceed to payment. Since we are not having that functionality here, we just add that proceed to payment like this. Okay. Just fix that. And now over here, you can just use that proceed to payment like this. Okay. And it's going to be view model dot create booking. Perfect. Now, the important thing here is basically to wait for that state change that we have over here. And once that booking is available, we need to initiate the Stripe payments, right? So we need to have some sort of callback for now, or a message or a log or whatever that basically gives us some sort of information that the payment intent or like payment detail are available, and now you can basically process that. So for that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use a side effect. So this is going to be launched effect UI state dot value dot value dot booking. Okay, so this booking is important. We'll basically be adding this. So when there is a change in that, so like that. Now over here, this is going to be some place where we will be creating, for now, let's just create a toast. Not, we cannot create toast. You can say print ln booking created with this ID. You can initiate the payment process here. Okay, this will basically be a message that we'll get. And now what is left? I think there is nothing left. We just need to update our DI for the view model here, which it will complain. So just add that. I think that's all. Now let's just run this. Okay, now let's just go to customer1 at travenor.com. Password is going to be password 123 and we'll sign into this. Now once I sign in, let's just go to this and try to book this. So I'm gonna go book, check in with this with two customer. Now we have something like this. We'll go to the logs. I'm just gonna clear everything so that we know the relevant logs. Now proceed. Once I proceed, we should see some information. We're not getting any information in the logs, which means something is wrong. There's just one thing that I need to fix for my logs, and that is going to be in here in the remote data source, not in remote data source, but go to the data where I have implemented the, where is my data? Yeah, over here. This is my remote factory DI. Yeah, inside this DI model, you see I have this. So I'm gonna make that to simple. So at least that I get some sort of logs for Android here. Now you can see I'm getting these logs. Now we go over here, their bookings, check-in, all these backend calls are working perfectly fine. Now we proceed, and when I proceed that, you see it's saying that unexpected offset check-in date, checkout date is null for the API call booking. And I think that is because the booking object that we created, where is my booking object? Booking, yeah, this one, this booking over here, this check-in and checkout dates are, where is check-in and checkout date? These are basically nullable because the server is not returning them. So that's why it's complaining. And this might be the same case for DTO as well. So just update that over there as well. I think the rest is pretty much fine. Try once again. Now, once again, we do that. We go over here, bookings, check-ins, just clear everything as we go. Proceed to payment. This time it failed with something more unexpected. Total price. What exactly is wrong here? Okay, so the total price is in Boolean. I believe the DTO has an integer for total price. Yeah, so it should be double. So once again, it's because I somehow, and created these wrong entries inside the basically the models. So once again, let's try once more. This time I'm very hopeful this will work. Now we go to the bottom. Once again, something wrong. It says unexpected null for payment ID. Yeah, okay. So basically, just make sure like these nullable stuff that we have, like the special request can be null, payment ID can be null, status cannot be null, this status should be null, not null as well. What else is there null? I think there's nothing more that's null. So basically these are some sort of information that basically can be null. So make sure to update your bookings objects accordingly, and we need to go to the bookings DTO as well and update that so that we have these nullables automatically set up. Now this time the booking should happen. Okay, I think, yeah, you can say the booking was created and now you can initiate the payment from here, which means now the payment was ready and we could like do the payment here, which means this is something that we did now. Okay, so the booking is done, and now there's just one thing that we don't have in the logs here. Yeah. Okay, so if you go to the code base and go to, where is my payment routes over here, this payment routes is important because this is something that will give us some sort of information. Okay, now once you create that booking, what you need is you need a payment intent. A payment intent is something that we need for for Stripe. So that intent is basically a message that we give to Stripe, and that and then Stripe basically handle it. So basically the payment intent is also created by Stripe, and that is basically something we did over here. Now, what we do over here is that we need to make a call, that is a post call, that will be, this payments slash intent. This will give us a response with payment intent object, which is basically something related to this booking ID. It contain customer ID. It will contain a couple more things. For example, it will contain the secret, and it will also contain the payment intent that we will be using. So that is something that we need to do once the booking is done. And yeah, so just basically let's just implement. There are certain requirement for that. For example, in the request, you need to pass that booking ID that you get, the amount. You can use the amount that also comes from the in the API, and you also have the currency that also comes from the endpoint. So basically all these information comes from the booking response, and then you can use that to basically process the result. So yeah, just copy this. Let's just basically copy it from here, and we go over here to our data section in the data models. Now over here, create a new model, call that payment intent info request, and it's going to be a class. You can change that later on to something like this, payment intent. Okay, payment intent info request. That's one thing, and you also need to get the result for that. So like I said, once that create payment intent, it's basically a payment intent response, and it needs a client. It returns a client secrets. It returns a payment ID, and also these are the information that you will be needing on the both side for this. Okay, so now in the again in the model, you can create this and say payment intent. Okay, and this payment intent, this is going to be DTO. Create a file, and then you can just paste that information here. That is going to be payment intent DTO. Just import, serialize it. You can just reuse the same functionality here in the model. Call that payment intent. Okay, and we will be using this like that. Okay, we are good. We need to create a mapper now, so we go to the mappers, booking mappers, just replace that with the payment intent mapper. So payment intent mappers, that is going to be payment intent DTO, and that is going to be payment intent. That is also something as payment intent. You get rid of all this and pass the information that it requires. Now we need to change this to DTO and to intent. Now we are good on that part. What's left? Yeah, now basically that is done. Now again, like I said, we need to make those web calls. So we go over here to the data source, remote data source, and now over here you can say suspend function create payment intent, and that is going to be intent info for requests that it will be needing, and in result it's going to be payment intent DTO that it will return to the user. And again, this is basically just similar payments. I'm not sure if it's payments. We go to the payment routes. Yeah, it's slash payment slash intent, so make sure to use the correct one, or else basically you might not get the desired result. So it's going to be payment slash intent, not create intent. Okay, and then you pass that body, you set the authorization to be the get the token, and then the rest of the stuff is pretty similar. And now we need to implement that similar thing in the booking repositories. I'm not sure if we should be using booking. Let's use a new repository which is called as payment repository. So you can say payment repository for that, and that is going to be an interface. And then you can say create payment intent, right? And that should be payment intent. So there are different things. One thing is that it needs listing ID as a string, then you need a booking ID as a string, then you need amount as double. I think these are the information, and also currency as string. So I think these are the information. It's basically similar to the request object that we created for payment. That was, where was that? It should be this one. So booking ID, amount, and currency. These are the information that's we need here in our repository. Where is my repository? So these are the information we need to pass. Okay, now this repository is done. We need to create an implementation for that over here. So just create a new Kotlin class file, call that payment repository impl, right? And you go for payment repository like this, import that. Now we need over here wall remote data source for this, and now implement the relevant information that we need here. Now again, pretty much similar to what we do. This is not something like this. Instead it should be currency payment intent info request, and then you pass the relevant information to that. So yeah, what we did here is, again, we just call that method, the create payment intent, that we created into the remote data source, and then in the results, if it's successful, we use payment intent. Instead, what we can do is, you can say payment intent mapper dot to domain, and then over here you can call that response inside that, so that it basically maps it and returns success, else it will basically return a failure, and that's something we need. Now we need to bind this to a di. So go over here to the data module and just use this pretty similar approach we did here. Just use this, and that is going to be payment repository. Okay, so the payment repository is done, and now we need a use case for that. So just go there, create a new Kotlin class, or perhaps just use the same copy paste. That's much easier. You can say create payment intent use case. Now inside that, we don't need booking repository. Instead, we need payment repository here, and then this is going to be create payment intent. It's going to be booking ID as string. Then we have a trip date ID, which is not required. It's requiring amount, that is going to be double. And then last one is going to be currency, that is going to be string as well. So just update these accordingly. Booking ID, then we need amount, and then lastly we need currency. Now the payment intent is going long. It should not be long, it should be double, right? And it should return payment intent instead. So we are good on that part. I think there is something I missed. It should be double, so we need to fix that in the implementation for that. Yeah, it should be double. Yes, payment info requests should be double, right? Anything left here? I think everything is good on that part. We should be good. Okay, now the payment intent implementation is there. Now we need to get that payment intent in the view model. So we go to the view model once again. Now there is just a couple changes I think that we need to do. That is basically to make sure that we are basically, you know, so now over here, what I need to do is that I don't need this because I'm not using it anywhere. Instead, I was basically hoping I might use, but there are some more thing, and that is going to be wall payment intent. That is important, that I'm going to use, and it is going to be used for create booking because that's the whole single process, so we need to make sure to use that. The booking is should be done, then after that we should get a payment intent, and based on that payment intent we should be getting the result. So now in the view model section, we get over here and we add one more stuff here, and that is going to be payment intent use case. That's there. And now over here, this booking should be null. Payment intent, let's make it payment intent, right? Yeah, okay. Now in case of success, basically if everything is there, what we need to do is that we need to do one more thing, and that is going to be create that payment intent. Okay, and now based on that you get that booking in the result. So you can say booking.id execute requires booking id, where I'm passing the id, which is a string, amount, not to int. What's going on here? Booking dot total price, and lastly it's going to be currency. That is also going to be booking dot currency. And just make sure the booking is not null. We know the booking is not null, so I'm not sure why we should be using this. Okay, right. Okay, that's booking ID. Okay, so now we have the payment intent that's available, and now this payment intent needs to be verified. So like if it's available, we'll basically, if error, it's null. If not, it will be successful, and then the create booking will also get to false. So basically what happens is that first we call that booking endpoint, and when we get a proper result for that, the next step is basically to use the get the payment intent. And when the payment intent is available, that is going to be something that when basically we will be actually making that call to server and update that. So we need to make sure we have that payment intent, and then you go for payment intent, and that is going to be payment intent ID. Okay, right. Try running this. Okay, we might have one error here that we need to fix. So just add this one get into this as well. Now running the code once again. This time hopefully we will be getting the intent ID in the for the bookings. Okay, what just happened? Okay, something's wrong. Check out view model, Koin view model factory. The view model is causing some issue. It's related to Koin. What it says, payment intent use case cannot be found. Okay, now let's go to the domain view model. Where is my domain view model? This is my domain view model. You can see, and yes, they are correct. We don't have the payment uh, create payment intent use case. We don't have that, and it also need payment repository for that. So I think it was correct. It crashed. Now try again, go for booking, check-ins, and now let's create everything. Try to make that multiple calls we get, and now you can see the first one went well. The second one says that failed to convert request body to class this. Okay, now let's just do one more thing. I think for the booking, what's happening is that the payment intent, sorry, request that we have, we are passing, so not this, where is my request object? This, my payment info. So we are passing these two information as well. Let's just not pass this. Okay. Now over here in this section, we are passing these two values. For now, let's just get it and pass only this. I think it should work. The server should be able to fetch the information based on this, but I could be wrong as well. So let's see what happens. We get over here, go bookings, checkout, proceed. So now basically from here you get this payment intent, and now this payment intent will be passed to the Stripe SDK, and that Stripe SDK will take from there. You basically create a sheet for you that you can use to make those payments. Okay. So let's just start working on that, or let's just implement that. Okay. So one problem with Stripe SDK is that there is no direct SDK for Stripe that basically we can use for Compose. So what we'll have to do is that we have to implement native implementation for that. So basically this is something new for the first time that we are doing on this channel. What we'll be doing is that we will be creating the iOS implementation differently and the Android implementation differently, and then basically process that. So let's just not waste that time and straight away jump to the actual implementation for that. So what we need to do is that we need to go first to the common main section in the Kotlins, and in the inside the Kotlin you have all these things. Now this contains all the common stuff that we have, right? So let me just create one more package and call that payments. Now inside this, what we need is that we need a couple of things. First thing is payment result. This will be just state that will give me the kind of payment that's there. Like it can be either failed or pending or whatever. So you get that. And over here you can just create a seal class payment result, and it's similar to success, and it's going to be object data object success, and then we have a failure that can contain an error message, and then also they should be cancelled. So you can say data object cancel. Okay, so these are the three things that we'll be having. Second thing is basically you need a new Kotlin file and call that Stripe payment. Stripe going to be Stripe payment handler. Okay. Now this is going to be an expect class. Okay. So that is one thing. You need to have an expect for that, and then along with that you need some more like functionality inside that as well that you will be using. First is basically the initialization of it. You can say function initialize, and it should be client secret. It should be publishable key, which is going to be string. The second one is going to be process payment, like suspend process payment and get the payment result. Okay. Now first, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna implement the Android side of that, and then after that we'll basically implement the next, or the iOS side. So first thing first, what we need to do is that we need to create the actuals. So you can create a go and create this section like this, and along with that what you need to do is that you need to go to the build.gradle file, and now you're over here you have these different dependencies that you can use. So I'm going to use one dependencies for Android, that is going to be the Stripe, and this is Stripe Android. You can see this is Stripe Android that you'll be using, so you can just use and sync it and just replace it with the catalog and sync it. So once you sync that, what will happen is that it will give me some sort of Android relevant dependencies in the code base that I can use, and I'll do that. So basically to initialize, what you can do is that you can use payment configuration dot init, And now over here, you can see that it requires two things. One is basically the context, and the second one is publishable. We have the publishable key. Okay, so now you can use the publishable key, but what do we do for context? You can say basically publishable key is equals to this, but we need context as well. So basically to get the context, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use Koin for that. So I'm going to say wall context is equals to, you can say global context, and that's, you can see it's coming from the Koin. So you can use this global context dot get, okay, dot get, and over here you can define that context, that is basically an Android context. You can use something like this. What it will do is that it will give you the context from the app. So you can just pass that context here, and then you are good. Now, just one thing that you need to make sure, once if you're doing something like this in the main activity, if you are not assigning this Android context, it will not give you that context. So make sure that you have this. Okay. Now, getting back to this section, this one step is done. The next step is basically to process the payment. So now for that, what I need is that I need one more thing, and that is going to be a Kotlin class, and you can say payment sheet holder. Okay, this is going to be a simple class like this, and what we need is basically we need a component activity for that, that comes with Android X. So now we'd have this something like this, and now over here we need some sort of implementation for the payment sheet, right? So first thing is that we need continuation as cancelable continuation, and it should be returning a payment result to us. It is basically um, so basically, why do we use this? This is basically some sort of it helps with implementing the callbacks with compatible with coroutines, because the payment sheet returns stuff in callbacks. So we will be using this so that we can handle it. Okay. Now the next step would be basically to get the payment sheet. So you can say payment sheet is equals to payment sheet, and you can pass the component activity into this. And like I said, what it does, it basically it just gives us the results. So you can just use that, and then for resume, you no, not this, import the continuation results. Okay, what happens here? It just, you get the a result for this. I think we can do one more thing here. Instead of using this, you can say wall result is equals to this, and rather than using this continuation here, you can just make it simpler, right? Okay, this is basically the payment result we created. Let me just try to fix this. Okay, now we have the result, and now inside that, in the bottom section, what you can say continuation dot resume, and then you can pass the result inside that. And since it's nullable, once you pass that result, make sure to make it null, so that it just doesn't do the implementation once again. Okay, perfect. Now that payment sheet stuff is done. The next step is to implement the how to present that. So you can say function present, and it should get client secret as string. Now we need to initialize this, because right now there is no initialization for this, and this is basically just handling the results. So based on the payment sheet, right? What exactly we need is basically we need return. It's going to be payment result. And now the problem here is that basically you cannot use like I said, this basically helps, continuation helps with callbacks. The reason for that is basically if I use payment sheet dot present with payment intent. Let's what happens is basically it just gives me a unit. It doesn't give any result. Instead, what it does, it basically gives the callbacks, and we cannot return callbacks with coroutines, right? So for that, what you will do is basically we use return suspend cancelable continuation. And now over here, basically you can just define that, that basically um, the continuation object is assigned to it, which will basically be something like this. And now you can make this suspend as well, so that it remains a coroutine function. And now over here with this, you can also pass, some sort of custom configuration as well. For example, if you want, the merchant display name to be Travnor, or yeah, these kind of things. Even basically you can get rid of that. So basically I just created this configuration with the display name Travnor, and now we have this present section. Okay. Lastly, what we can do is that we can create a companion object for that and call that something like this. Okay, now I can create this get this instance like this, but I'm not going to use it this way. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to keep it this way, because I need to initialize this, like this payment sheet holder in the activities on create. So for that, what I'll do is that I'll basically keep it like this for now. Well, we can do one more thing like this. Okay, so now I have these implementation done, and now I'm gonna go back over here, and inside this payment process section, you can do is that you can say wall holder is equals to payment sheet holder dot instance. This is the instant object that we'll be getting, and then you can just do holder dot present, and if it's null, we'll basically say that payment sheet is not initialized. So now this type handler for iOS is basically implemented. There's just one more thing, and that is this instance that we basically mentioned, that we need to make sure we create this instance. We haven't done that here. So for that, what you can do is that you need to go to your main activity. Where is your main activity? This is the main activity. And now over here, main activity, before the Koin implementation, perhaps what you can do is that you can say payment sheet holder dot instance is equals to something like this. This basically initializing the payment sheet in the activities on create, so that basically handles that. Now this implementation for Android is done. Now we need to basically link it. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go back to my checkout screen over here. And now we have this payment sheet available. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create one more thing. I'm gonna say wall payment sheet handler is equals to, remember, stripe payment handler, and this is complaining. I guess I know why it's complaining. We need to make sure we use this. And now I think the checkout screen should not complain. Yeah, now you can see it's not complaining. There's just one thing I believe we might have to do here, and that is going to be to define, the actual constructor for that as well, since we are using, the constructor for that. Now it should be done. Okay. Now we go to the checkout screen. We have this payment handler, and now process payment. And then for that, I'm going to say it.client secret. Now, once that is done, you can say wall result status like this. And now you can say when basically the result status is payment result dot success. You can show something for success. For perhaps we can just get rid of that. For failure, you can define a failure. And lastly, for cancelled, you can do whatever you want. Now this is done. What next we can do is that you can define, perhaps, for now, let's just say payment successful as a log. You can call that Travnor payments. like this. Over here you can define something like this, payment failed, and then for that you can also use println payment cancelled by user. So these are the actions that user have done, user can do, and then once that is done, the next step would be basically to process the rest of the stuff, like maybe updating the server and all. Now let's just run this once again. Okay, now we are here. We make a new booking here, perhaps this round trip booking. This is done. We make these two values, proceed to payment. Okay, something happened and just crashed or something. I'm not sure what happened here, but yeah, something just happened and then failed. It says word not initialized. You need to call this init functionality as well. So basically, we missed that. So okay, now so for initialization, what you can do is that you need to get over here and you need to initialize the spray payment sheet handler. Now we don't have that handler defined somewhere. So one thing that I'm gonna do over here is basically create something as wall stripe module is equals to module, and that is going to be single. Sorry about that. That's single, and then you need to just get rid of that whole thing. It's going to be stripe payment handler like this, and this stripe module should also be added here. So I think we need to add it over here, then it should be fine. Yeah. So now basically what I did is basically we created this stripe module, added it to this so that we can use this. Now inside the app section, what we can do is that you can say wall stripe payment handler is equals to get coin, and this get coin is basically a composable that comes from coin, and it will give me that payment sheet handler. And now you can say launched effect true and stripe payment handler dot initialize in this. So basically now what we need to do, like I mentioned previously, you have to go to the section and then you get that publishable key from here. Just copy that publishable key and pass it inside this. Right now this key is there and the initialization should work. And now try running this time this will basically be working perfectly fine. Now you can go over here, go to this booking now, check-ins, proceed to payment. Now when I click on that, it should get that payment intent and then process that through this. Now you can see we got this. I'm just gonna add some logs to this so that we can see what's happening under the hood. I'm gonna cancel this, and as soon as I cancel, you can see that we should get some sort of callback. We didn't get the callback. Why? Yeah, you can see over here Traveler payments, payment cancelled by the user. Now let's just try once again. This time we got that, and you can define what app you want. You 42424242424. This is my test card, so you can just use that, and then like this. Now once I click on that, you will see we should, if the payment went successful, and once the payment was successful, you got this successful message over here as well, that the payment successful, it happened, like the payment was successful, which means now that the booking is kind of completed here. So you can take the user from here to booking section or whatever section that you where you want, you can show that. But yeah, that is something that we did here. And there's just, this is just for Android right now. We haven't implemented anything for iOS. So yeah, let's just go and implement the iOS. Okay, now the Android implementation is done. So basically the next step would be to implement the iOS for that. So yeah, I'll just first run on iOS to see how it looks. Okay, now when I try to run it, you see we have some issues, and that says that you don't have the implementation for the Stripe. So I'm gonna just create the missing actual for iOS main here over here as well. And now it's done. Okay, try again. This time it should at least fix, but it will not work. Right, the iOS implementation will not just work at all. Okay, we are here. I just opened it. Go over here, book now, checkout, and now when I proceed, nothing happens. You see it's crashing because definitely there are no implementation available. Now, there is just one thing that you need to understand before we go forward. It might be a little bit confusing for now, but I'll try to explain it in a easier way so that you have a better understanding for this. So basically, like I said, for iOS, the way we work with in Compose multiplatform or Kotlin multiplatform is that basically there are certain things that are not available in Kotlin, and you have to jump to Swift for that. That can be a very limited thing, or that can be a very limited feature that you want to expose. But you need to communicate, your Swift code with Kotlin in a way that I'm going to show you in this video. Okay. And for that, we use basically bridge. Bridge is not nothing. It's just a simple function. What happens is that we create a bridge in a Kotlin, in a Swift code, and then that bridge is basically registered to your Kotlin file, and then through that we basically access that. Okay, so it might be confusing when theoretically, but it's pretty simple when we basically actually look into how we are going to implement it. Now the first thing is that what you need to do is that you can just go to your iOS app, open in Finder like this, and inside that iOS app you have this iOS app.xcode project. You can just open it in your Xcode. Once you open this in Xcode, you will see something like this. This is just a content view with just a couple of functionality, and this is your iOS app. We don't touch the iOS app. This might be needed, but yeah, first thing first, we need a new empty file, and let's call that file as Stripe payment bridge. Now like I said, the bridge is something that will basically be similar to to how we implemented Android. It will contain the same functionality of initialize and present, but since it's in Swift, so the syntax might be a little bit different than we have, like you might have experience. So don't worry about that. It's like not very common, and there is plenty of help that you can find, but you definitely need some sort of understanding of how the Swift works. Okay, so this Stripe payment bridge is there. First thing first is that we need to implement Stripe, okay, and integrate Stripe like as an SDK. Now the project can be different kind of projects. iOS, the one project that I have is basically it's a normal package dependency. You can also have a pods implemented in your code. Right now this one is just the normal one, so we can go over here, add package dependency. And now this is something that I've recently used, but for you, if you don't have these things, what you can do is that just search for Stripe iOS SPM. So this is the one that you need to integrate. This is a lightweight Stripe SDK for iOS. Just click on the add package, and once you add package, you will see over here you need to integrate or use this Stripe payment sheet. This is the only one that we need. Okay, so once you add that, you will see this iOS app over here. Just click on add package, and it will be added over here. Once you do that, the next step is basically you need to do some sort of imports. So you can say import foundation. These are some normal, like a simple imports. Then you will be importing import UI kit, and lastly you need to import Stripe payment sheet. Okay, this is just the payment sheet class that we basically just integrated. This comes from Stripe SDK. Now the next thing is basically you just create a public class and call that Stripe payment bridge. This is that. Now this Stripe payment bridge needs to be accessed through a shared object. So for that, what you can do is that you can create a static object. I'm going to call that public static let, and you can call that shared equals to Stripe payment bridge. Okay, and since this is basically accessed through static, I'm gonna make sure the init function for that, or the constructor for that, is private so that it's not accessible outside. Now these are just how we try to access these objects. Nothing more, nothing fancy. It's just a singleton object that we created. Now Like I said, we need two functionality. One is the functionality for initializing. So we need a initialize method for that. And that initialize method needs a key. So that is going to be publishable key. And it's going to be a string. Okay. That's just straightforward like that. Second function that we have is basically, it says function present payment sheet. Now there are two callbacks for that. One is basically the client secret, that is a string, and the second one is basically a callback. So for a callback, what you have is basically, you can say completion as escaping, and you can define the type of functionality that we have, like what kind of if there is any value that you will be getting from that as well. And it should be void, which means like it's basically just giving a return. Now these are the things. Now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna add one function that is basically a util function that basically we use to basically get the top view controller. It's just similar to how we get the top view activity or top activity that we have, but for in iOS it's a bit something like that. What it does is basically through the connected scene, whatever the screen, it gives you the first or the top one, the one screen that is currently presented to you. Don't just get confused with this code. Just you can just copy that and paste it in the code base. What's interesting or what's important for this is that this part, the initialization part, and that's important. Okay. For initialization, it's just simple as stripe API dot publishable default publishable key, and you can just say it is equals to publishable key. Once you do that, this means that it's basically done and you are okay. Now inside this section, we need to do the same functionality we did for iOS for Android. So let's just do that. So basically, okay, now I'm gonna say var config is equals to payment sheet dot configurations. So basically that's the configuration we got, and then over here you can say merchant display name is equals to Travnor. It's just same like we did in the previous implementation. Next step is basically to create the payment sheet. So I'm going to say create payment sheet is equals to payment sheet. And inside that, we need two things for this. One is client secret, payment intent client secret, and configuration. So for that, you have the client secret as well, and now you also have the configuration, so you can just pass that configuration to this as well. Now this is also done. Next step is basically to actually present that, and you need to do basically, make sure you present it on a main thread. So you can say dispatch queue dot main. It's just basically coroutine scope dot dispatches dot main dot async. And now inside that, you need to run the whole code that you have now. Like I said, this top view controller is important because it is required in order to present. It's just like a component activity that we have passed. So for that, what you can do is that first thing is basically you can say guardlet. The constant value is going to be your view controller, and over here you can say that it's going to be top view controller. Else you can just say return. It's not return. Instead, what you can do is that you can say completion and say no screen available, something like that. So basically it's just make sure to that there is one screen at least available when we are trying to present the sheet to the user. Okay, now that's one thing. Second thing is just you just do present. It should basically be payment sheet dot present, and then from you can say view controller that you have. Okay, now in return you get some results, so you can say just say that result in. Now inside that, when you have these results, what you need to do is that you need to process those results. So now to do that, you have switch. You can say switch and define the result, and then you can say case dot uh, completed completion and define success. Now basically, since we are here and we cannot directly access the Kotlin side, we cannot access the state file that we created for this. So basically, that's why I'm gonna hard code these strings, and then we'll basically try use the same thing in the Kotlin side so that it's easier to understand. And last one is basically failed and completion failed. Okay, so now we have these success, cancelled, and failed. For this, I think that's done. And now this side, like this implementation is there, they're done. We basically created this. Now, like I said, we need to register this bridge, register these functionalities to our backend. So for that, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create something in the Android side. Get over here. Now we go to iOS main over here and view controller section. But before going there, we'll create one more Kotlin class and call that that is going to be an object, and that's going to be a bridge. So you can say payment sheet bridge. Okay. Now it should have functionality. So it's like some function that we will be registering. So I'm going to say var um, initialize function, and that is going to be a string, that it will pass a string, and it can be nullable. Then we have something as process payment. It's not something like this, sorry. It should be one, it should be passing a string, and then it should also be passing another string to that as well, like this. Okay, and again it should be null. So make sure to make it null. What we'll do is that we'll pass it something like this and make it. Now what I did is basically I created two variable that are basically kind of function, and through which we will be basically registering that. Now in the main view controller over here, I'm going to create function and call that function register payment handler bridge, or you can say register bridge. Okay, now it requires two functionality. Again, this functionality, one is going to be um, the initialize, and second one is going to be the process payment for this, and then you will just basically just assign those payment sheet bridge values. Okay, so we'll be importing that. So what I did is basically I created a function that will give me two callbacks. One is this, second one then, and those will be registered to it. That's all. Now this register bridge functionality and this initialize and process payment should be registered through the content view of the Xcode. Like if we go over here to the content view section over here, now we have this UI view controller. First thing first, we make it return, and then now over here we will be using that registration process. Okay, so I'm gonna say let bridge is equals to stripe payment bridge dot shared, one thing. And we also make sure that main view controller kt dot register bridge. That's basically the same function that you need to use so that you can pass the relevant information. So just make sure to use the correct name. I'm gonna use that. So we get over here back register bridge. Okay, now first function is initialize, and it is going to give a string. So just make sure we use something like that. And you can say publishable key in. Now over here, you will just say bridge dot initialize, and you will define that publishable key inside that. Perfect, right? Then the second function is process payment. So we'll go over here once again, copy that process payment, and we know that this contains two things. One is basically the client secret. So you can say client secret along with completion in. And now inside that, you will say bridge dot present. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that. We'll just use secret as client secret. For completion, you'll just get, let's just do the other way. Okay, now over here, you know that you have a result, so you can say result in, and then you will be just using completion, and then pass the result into that, which is going to be string. So that's basically something, somehow, like how it will be registered. So what we did here is basically we created this, which basically returns that handling of sheet, and also initialize it. Second stuff that we did is basically we registered into the main view controller into the iOS. That is done. The next part is basically to now basically access these implementation. So first thing first, well, when I say wall init function is equals to initialize function, and now over here I'm gonna say init function dot let, and now over here you will just be using this like this, init function. Okay, we did that. Second thing is for the payment sheet. Now over here you can see this is a simple suspend function, but we have the bridge that we have, the function that we have, the process function basically contains a callback. So now first thing first, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna say, gonna check for that. Okay, and come on, what you can do is that um, we can say process function dot let. Okay, now over here I'm gonna say return suspend cancelable callable coroutine. Okay, and now inside that you can say continuation for this, and say it dot client secret in turn of result. If we have that, we can just return, but we don't need to return it this way. Let me just give it, you can also return payment payment result dot failure, saying the process function is not implemented yet. Okay, now basically this is not like that. We should not be doing it this way. Instead, you can say when, or you can say wall payment result is equals to when result, if it's success, you can say cancelled, you can say cancelled, and this will basically be something like this. Okay, now this implementation for this side is also done. The stripe, the actual implementation is there, the payment sheet is there, main view controller is also updated accordingly. I think everything is now ready for iOS. Now let's just try to run it and see if it works. So now let's just try to run that. Hope we don't get any bugs or any issues for this. Okay, the build was successful. It says view controller, it should be in the Stripe bridge. What I'm doing wrong here? Uh, Presenting this. Okay, I think that could be the problem. Self dot top view controller. And also there's just one more thing I think I missed over here, and that is basically return. So I think these are the two things we need to do. Now I hope it should be fine, working fine like we wanted. Yeah. Okay, so now it just ran. Now we go over here, try to go Tokyo City and get over here. uh, Two, three, four items. Okay, go for it. So 862.44 something. The payment sheet just appeared. I'm gonna use 42424242424248. So basically, the 424242 is the test card for success. And now let me just try using that payment section. Okay, we should see a success, which I didn't see. Let's just try once again. Okay, we got this. Okay, it says success, but we are not getting the call back, which is odd. We should get the call back. Let me see what I'm if I'm missing something. Let me see what I'm missing here. So if we go over here toward this section, yeah, you can see this payment result, and we need to make sure that we resume that, and then we pass that payment result into this. Try once again. This time it should work. Why not? We need to import it this one. Okay, try again. Okay, now we are here. Let me just go Tokyo City tour, book now. Once again, add one process to payment. Okay, the intent was created. Now we go for 4242424242424534, and now we pay that. Successfully paid, and now we should also get a call back saying the payment was successful, which means now both the Android and the iOS integration is now fully working. And so yeah, that was it for this video. I hope you like the video, and I think we just have left some booking listings where basically you can see your bookings and all. And yeah, and then we'll start working on the vendor side implementation of how basically the vendor will get all those and how vendor can add different events. So yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icons so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.